and that may result in people dying.
What evidence do you have, though, that they're lowering the standards? There's no evidence of that.
I believe there is.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
I believe they have literally lowered the standards at Duke University, and that is what the article was referring to.
There's no evidence.
Saying they have not lowered the standards?
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
I believe that is a false statement you're making.
Okay.
Don Lemon is awful. When last we checked with Don Lemon and Elon Musk, well, the whole, I'm going to start a show on X and it's going to be great and it's going to be wonderful and I'm going to be the left-wing counterbalance to Tucker Carlson and that whole thing, well, it sort of imploded. It blew up on itself. Don Lemon took a couple of clips from his interview with Elon Musk to CNN to show what an intolerant numbskull Elon was, you know, the richest man in the world. Who's shooting rockets off to Mars and invented the most effective, affordable electric car in the history of mankind. Yeah, that guy, he's a moron. He can't rise to the level of Don Lemon intellect. Don Lemon was also accusing Elon Musk of being anti-free speech because he wasn't willing to give him $8 million a year, including a $5 million signing bonus, a seat on the board of X, with authority to make decisions for the company, plus a free Cybertruck, not to mention luxurious travel to Las Vegas with drinking money and a couple's massage for he and his fiance, which is an image I don't need in my mind right now. Yeah, it's good to be an elitist in the media who really doesn't have any skill set, which you're about to see, because now that interview has been released and the clips, it make Don Lemon look even worse than what I just laid out. Watch this and try to put yourself in the position of Elon Musk, a bona fide genius, grappling with this conversation with a man who doesn't understand just basic concepts. It's astounding.
Let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true? And what evidence do you have to support it?
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, such so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes, if the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lowered, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher. They're making mistakes in their exam. They may make mistakes with people, and that may result in people dying.
What evidence do you have, though, that they're lowering the standards? There's no evidence of that.
I believe there is.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
I believe they have literally lowered the standards at Duke University, and that is what the article was referring to.
There's no evidence.
Saying they have not lowered the standards?
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
I believe that is a false statement you're making.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
I think
the interesting thing is when this is posted on the X platform, there will be a whole bunch of things that rebut what you said and what I said.
Correct.
And so people can then make their own decision based on the replies, the rebuttals, and the community notes.
Yeah, he's absolutely right about that. And well, we'll get to the free speech part of the conversation in a moment, but that is what Elon Musk, I believe, is all about here in this exchange, which is, okay, you're making an assertion, I'm making an assertion. Let's just let the viewers and readers decide, which is what we're going to do right now. But just so you know, you notice that, because I've done this before. I've been interviewing people for 15 years of my career now. What Don Lemon was doing there was not an interview. He wasn't asking a question. He was making an assertion. He was picking a fight. He was arguing. He said, there's no evidence of that. By the way, the very beginning of this interview is wrapped up in a lie too.
Let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk.
Did you see what he did there? You claim DEI is killing people, and then he actually quoted him, which is putting people at risk, which is not the same thing, is it? Is it? But you saw the exchange, and it does hinge on a Ben Shapiro thread. Well, unlike Don Lemon, we're actually going to look at that thread. This is the thread that Elon Musk talked about. This is the thread that Don Lemon talked about. It's Ben Shapiro's thread. And you can see that he talks about DEI specifically in medicine. And you heard Elon Musk there say, listen, if we're lowering standards in medicine, then we're putting people at risk, right? And Don Lemon's assertion was there's no evidence that standards are being lowered. Remember that. So Ben Shapiro goes through this entire thing. Wake Forest Medical School, UPenn Health. He gives evidence. Wake Forest, UPenn, right? And then he goes to Duke surgical resident Vignesh Raman. This is an internal DEI lecture where Mr. Raman talks about all of the lessons learned at Duke University School of Medicine, specifically having to do with critical race theory and making sure, well, I'll let him lay it out for you and listen to whether you think there is evidence. Remember, Don Lemon said there is no evidence that standards are being lowered in medical school. Here's Duke University.
2020 and George Floyd and those events happened and sort of collectively galvanized the consciousness of Duke University and certainly our department to try to do something, and recognizing this like centuries long history of racism and slavery in which Duke University essentially was founded, on which it was founded. And that's when we sort of had to confront the history of the institution, the history of our department, the walls of white men that are draped across our hallways. And that's when we started to think that maybe something should change.
I just want to point something out here. You heard that, the walls of white men. That's, the founders of Duke University and the longtime deans and professors and Nobel laureates and all of that. They're just reduced down to a wall of white men by this guy. Also, look at the people participating in the Zoom. Talk about preaching to the choir. Do you see any white men there? Who exactly are we trying to educate here? This is just virtue signaling validation for some sort of victim mentality that these people. By the way, you guys are like surgeons and doctors and professors at Duke University. What have you got to feel inferior about? That's one of the most insidious things about this whole DEI movement is that they have every reason to be proud of their achievements, but instead they can't be proud and happy of their achievements unless they're harming white men. Now, we talk about lowering standards. Listen to the remedy here, because we're so very upset at the wall of white men at Duke University because it's white supremacy, and we have to atone for that. So how will we remedy it?
Change within ourselves in who comprises this department, in terms of the faculty, in terms of the residents, significant inequity in representation in our program. And it's something that we've been consciously, deliberately working hard to change over the last several years. Some of the things that we have done, in addition to what Lillian presented, I think the most important thing we've done is really systemic changes to our recruitment process to try to recruit diverse residents to our program, and then to retain and support those diverse residents after they get to our program. So part of this has involved transitioning to completely holistic review process that we spoke about earlier today, abandoning all sort of metrics and screens, looking at people's life story and what brought them into surgery.
All right, that's it right there. Abandoning metrics and screens. Do you know what metrics and screens are? Do you know what that is? That's your transcripts and your SAT scores and your ACT score. That's the metrics. It's a holistic approach to admission and recruitment. And we're really more interested in your life story and what brought you to medicine than we are about, your skill sets and abilities and knowledge and how well you performed in school on tests and in grades, all the stuff that we used to have as the standard. That is what Elon Musk means by lowering standards. It's the smoking gun of all smoking guns in this. And I tell you all of this, as you can see here, Raman also tweeted he won't amplify medical literature involving only white men because it's not as if white men have ever advanced medicine or anything. That's, of course, how Ben reinterprets what Mr. Raman is saying. This is exactly what Elon Musk was referring to. This is what Don Lemon, without the sake of showing his viewers what I just showed you, and what it's all referring to, he reinterpreted it and said, you're saying that DEI is killing people, but there's no evidence of that. He said, well, no, what I said was it's putting people at risk because we're lowering standards in medical schools. And ultimately, that's going to result in lesser qualified people being in charge of medical decisions. And that can't be good, right? Shouldn't we want excellence there? And all Don Lemon could say was there's no evidence of that. Well, I just showed you the evidence. So you see, Don Lemon didn't lose his gig at X, or his payday, really, I should say, because he can go ahead and do his show all he wants at X. If he really has a true love for the journalism, we'll see if he continues. But I think he just loved the idea of a payday from the richest man in the world. He didn't lose that payday because of concerns over free speech or because he offended Elon Musk. No, he lost it because Elon Musk, while sitting here firsthand watching how Don Lemon does his job, he saw that he's a stupid hack. I mean, truly ignorant. How many times did Don Lemon say, I don't understand what you're saying. Please explain it to me. I understood it the first time he said it. And it actually gets worse. Take a look.
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor,
You're saying if we lower the standards,
Yes.
but do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered
I don't
or have
think
been
that
lowered?
is yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay. But the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities were treated by the medical system,
Oh,
most doctors now are white. And there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that my doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI, because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
Can I just, for a moment, can you put yourself in Elon Musk's shoes as he has to listen to this? So what passes for an intelligent, intellectual, reasoned response on the left in America from a journalist like Don Lemon is, well, wait a minute, that makes no sense because we have a lot of white doctors now and mistakes are made. So what are you saying? I mean, what if we have a bunch of ethnically diverse doctors and they make the mistakes? We're basically, in the same boat. So what's the problem? And this is an argument being made to a man who's literally the richest man on the planet by creating and building companies in the tech world by striving for excellence at all costs. Does Don Lemon think that Elon Musk would not hire a programmer who is the greatest programmer or software engineer that he's ever met, but because he's not white, he's not going to hire him? Seriously? Is that what he thinks? By the way, let's not forget the fact that at this moment when this interview is happening, Elon Musk has hired Don Lemon, who last I checked is a black dude. And just so you know, there are a lot of better journalists out there than Don Lemon. It's kind of funny to see him argue about the DEI hires when Don Lemon is, by most descriptions from his former coworkers, a DEI hire. He was there not because he was the best journalist or the most engaging person on television, and certainly not because he got ratings, because he didn't. He was there because he was a gay black man. So of course he's willing to die on the DEI hill. All right, so watch how Elon Musk responds to this very intellectual challenge.
No, I said, so if the standards, like let's say, I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will.
But
I said if we lower standards, people will die.
But why respond to something or put something out there that has not happened, Because I could say,
Because I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower standards.
Just wait until we have, hundreds of people dying a day from these decisions, and then maybe you can post about it. But God forbid you warn about what might happen because of a bad policy. God forbid you use basic logic and wisdom to foresee what could possibly and will probably happen if you go ahead and do this. I would ask Don Lemon, hey, if we put these diversity standards and equity standards into the National Basketball Association, do you think the quality of the play will diminish or increase? Well, how will we know unless we do it? How will we know? Let's just change the quota. Let's change the metrics used for hiring basketball players and emphasize a diverse workforce, and not just racial diversity. I'm talking about, I don't care what color skin they are. How about we hire NBA players based on not their height and their basketball skills? Let's hire a smorgasbord of various physical abilities, including, let's face it, a couple of players in wheelchairs, probably some blind players. If you really want to be fully diverse, let's do it right. And let's put it out there and let's see if the quality of basketball increases or decreases. Don, ball's in your court. We are not allowed to comment on it or criticize that decision or make any presumptions about what will happen with the quality of basketball until we actually do it and try it. Now, that's insane and ridiculous, isn't it? And that's just basketball. This is medicine, surgery. But in Don Lemon's world, you're not allowed to even speculate what might happen because that's an assumption, and that goes against the CRT equity rulebook. Any assumption is inherently racist, you see, unless it's an assumption made by a racial minority. These are the rules. I didn't make them up.
Okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors in America are Black. All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board certified surgeon or an oncologist or something where the kind of disease we're talking about, if you make a mistake causes someone to die, then more people will die than if we don't lower the standards. Therefore, we should not lower the standards.
But why do you think they're lowering the standards for minority doctors or women doctors? Or
that's what that's what that article suggested. Yes, at Duke University.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You and your facts. Although, of course, the way Don Lemon reacts is like, okay, you're lying about that, but I just showed you the truth, isn't it? There are more straw men in Don Lemon's arguments than in the national tour of The Wizard of Oz. But the straw men don't end there. There's actually more of this that reveal exactly what Don Lemon is up to here and why Elon Musk, frankly, fire him. For God's sake, he should sue him.
Let's talk about trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you talk about that a lot. You're right about that a lot on the thing. You have been deeply outspoken about the issue of trans rights. You posted trans rights. You posted that pronouns in bio mean the woke mind virus ate your brain. Do you know what the term woke actually means?
It's come to mean a lot of things.
But what originally it was meant to mean. It's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware of facts and history.
Yeah, I think it's come to be. I think being aware of inequities in society is fine, of course, but trying to blame everything on trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society.
Even as it relates to trans issues, which is what I'm.
Yeah, race or gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and yeah.
You think that's unfair?
Yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. I think we need to move on. I think we just treat people like people.
You don't agree that this country was founded on racism and founded on slavery and in many ways inequities?
Yeah, I think you're getting a good flavor of what we've got going here, right? And by the way, this whole define woke, do you know what it means? We own the word woke now. Okay. So when a leftist comes to you and says, can you even define woke? It's like, you know what? You give them your definition, because woke is our word. We stole it from you. All right. You used it to pat yourself on the back and give you virtue because you were so aware of how systemically racist and sexist and misogynistic and xenophobic and all the things this country is. And now we use it, as he just said, woke mind virus. That's right. If you look at everything through the spectrum of hating America and hating Western civilization and hating Christianity and hating standards that have actually made Western civilization thrive and stand across the globe for the last multiple centuries, if you shoot everything through the prism of that being evil and wrong, you do have a virus. And we will twist that word and make you have to explain it yourself. You have to own our new definition of it. Your definition doesn't count anymore. Sorry. Those are our rules now. A little bit more.
Let's talk more about free speech and for advertisers, right? Because all this controversy, I believe, as you know, has made X less appealing to advertisers. About half of them have left the platform. You call advertisers that left X.com. You said they were oppressors. You've even gone as far as saying it publicly that they can go F themselves or go F themselves.
If they're going to force censorship on the company before advertising, then obviously I find that unacceptable.
You find it unacceptable. Why is that not a form of free speech? They are free to advertise where they want. They're not beholden to, they're not obligated to advertise.
They're not obligated.
On X.com.
Right.
So how is that not free speech?
All right. So we're going to finish this up in just a second, but I just want to point out to you again that Don Lemon is stupid. And I don't use that very often because I try to give people grace and the benefit of the doubt, and I just assume they're wrong, not stupid. Unlike the left, who they believe we are either stupid or evil. It's one or the other, right? If we are intelligent, then it means we're evil, right? And I try not to do that. But in this case, Don Lemon is just stupid, all right? He's trying to make this point about free speech and that Elon Musk has vilified, rightly, advertisers who tried to force him to censor people they didn't agree with, or else they would take their advertising elsewhere. And he said, F you. Go F yourselves. I'm not playing that game. I'm not going to kowtow to you and let you censor the information on this platform and blackmail me and hold a gun to my head with your advertising dollars. I would rather not have your money than have you dictate to me what is allowed and what expression is freely expressed here on this platform. And Don Lemon is twisting that to, well, if they go elsewhere, isn't that free speech? Of course they can go elsewhere. And Elon Musk just said that. No, the problem is not them leaving and taking their advertising dollars. Their problem is using their advertising dollars and what they perceive to be their power over Elon Musk and X to force censorship and force speech standards. And Don Lemon doesn't understand that. Do you know why? Because every single one of the questions that he just laid out here that I just showed you, you could go to the totalitarian, authoritarian censorship bonanza known as Media Matters for America, and you will see all of these issues laid out almost in the same order that Don Lemon uses. You know what Don Lemon did for show prep before his interview with Elon Musk? He printed out a bunch of pages from Media Matters for America, a Soros-funded, John Podesta-created hit squad meant to silence any voice that doesn't fit in doctrinarily with Obamaism. That's what this is. He's just dumb. And he doesn't understand this basic point. Now, you can see on Elon's face there, he's done with it. He's absolutely done with it. And let's let it play out. There's just a little bit more of this, and then we'll move on. But you should see how Elon Musk finishes this false argument about because basically Don Lemon is now accusing Elon Musk of being anti-free speech, which is pretty rich. Watch.
So that's whereas the other platforms will censor on behalf of advertisers, the X platform will not.
Okay. So, but you think you don't think it's okay for them not to advertise with or have their content or their advertisement next to something that is anti-Semitic or
That is a different question. You can absolutely choose where next to which content do you want to advertising to appear. Absolutely, of course, and we have, I think, very good ad placement controls in this regard.
Yeah. So you said if they kill the company, it's them, but doesn't the buck stop with you? I mean, you're
Don, I have to say, choose your question carefully. There's 5 minutes left.
okay, but so
Is this the question you want to ask?
the same question is you said that they are killing the company, but you're the head of the company. The buck doesn't stop with you.
I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment. And I'm going to stick to that.
Let's leave it there. I purchased X for the First Amendment and freedom of speech. Let's just stick with that. And honestly, what boggles my mind after watching this entire exchange is Don Lemon, like other liberal journalists, are, yes, A, not smart, and B, not really in favor of free speech, not really in favor of the First Amendment, not really in favor of the freedom of the press. They're in favor of the freedom of their speech and their ideas exclusively. It's quite a bargain they're trying to strike here, that they're the only ones who are allowed to articulate ideas, and they're the only ones who get to own free speech. And there are no other ideas that they disagree with, or the ones that they choose are just too odious to be heard publicly, that they are not allowed, and they should not be permitted. And add to that it is mega corporations like Disney or Coca-Cola or American Airlines that get to dictate the terms of speech. That's a remarkable thing to see from a so-called journalist, but of course he's not. He's not a journalist. Not many of them are at this point. They cosplay reporting, journalism, and news reading on behalf of corporations who want to keep their gravy train going.